Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to APSA Field Crops Webinar Session 2 on Biofortification, Market Development, Strategy for Field Crops. So my name is Kuna, Technical Coordination Manager, and I'll be with you today for the whole session. Before we start, let me explain you a little bit more about the housekeeping rules for APSA webinar. So, attendees, if you have any question regarding to technical issues, comments, or remarks, please put it in the chat box. And if you have any question to the speakers, please put it in the Q&A box. So remember, for issues, put in chat box. For question to speakers, please put it in Q&A box. You will see the option of the like in Q&A box. So question that got most like will have priority to be answered by the speakers. And that's it for the housekeeping rules. We would like to thank our sponsors of this webinar, East West Seed and Taki Seed. And also I would like to thank the APSA Special Interest Group of Field Crops to make this webinar happen. So let us watch a short video from East West Seed and Taki. Thank you very much, East West Seed. Now let us watch a short video from Taki Seed.
Using advanced technologies refined over many years, we are working to bring about a new age in agriculture. Founded in 1835, we are Taki Seed.
Thank you very much, East West Seed and Taki Seed, for being our sponsor in this webinar. So let us start the session with the opening of the webinar. May I invite Dr. Chua Kim Ik, the co-chair of APSA Special Interest Group for Field Crops, for the opening remarks. Dr. Chua, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kuna. Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Selamat pagi, selamat tengah hari. This is in Bahasa Malaysia greeting language. First of all, we'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of APSA. We'd like to thank our sponsor, East West Seed and Taki Seed, being the sponsor to sponsor this event, our webinar section 2. Our webinar section 2 basically are mainly focused on biofortification. Biofortification is mainly related to food security. I think food security is one of the hot topic being discussed by every nation now, especially during this COVID COVID situation. I think every country feel that the food supply will be one of the issue. I think food security basically defined as in the simple form, it's enough food, enough nutrient for everyone. I think apparently globally there are more than 800 million to 1 billion people are in hunger. So there's two issues. One is the productivity, another is the logistic on the supply chains. So this section, biofortification, is mainly to address one of the issue on the productivity with the nutrient that can supply to the people, and then to have enough food and enough balanced nutrient and balanced diet for their daily requirement. So you look at the problems, this issue they are facing now. The land is getting smaller and the population is increasing. So they have to improve the productivity through science and technology. I think you look at this total value chain, the fundamentals is a seed. And seed is one of the component in the total value chain that can help to improve this productivity. And another issue is the logistic. So with this science and technology, that's one of the strategy that can help to improve productivity through breeding. And breedings also with the science and technology, they can improve and then can produce a product with a better nutrient, especially this supply of food to the people's maybe in the early day, they are talking about just fill up the stomach, enough food to fit their requirement. But the demanding, today the people are more demanding. They need the food with the proper nutrient. That's why we have this webinar focused on this breeding strategy to develop product with the nutrient, the required nutrient through this technology. And biofortification is one of the strategy that we are going to improve our productivity with the proper nutrients. And today, this webinar, we have two very renowned scientists. They're going to share with us of their technologies and their work in this biofortification. And also we have a very experienced and renowned scientist, Dr. Fresco, going to be our moderator to moderate this event. I think you will enjoy it, and then I will pass this to Dr. Fresco to, sorry, before that, I just give a brief introduction about Dr. Fresco. Dr. Fresco is one of the scientists from Philippines. He obtained a PhD from Philippines, and he is also consultant to SL's this one SL Agritech Corporation, and also advisor to the rice program in the DOA of Philippines. So I think you will enjoy the section, and then I will pass the floor to Dr. Fresco. Thank you very much. Dr. Fresco, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I can. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Chua, for that opening remarks for our webinar 2 of the special interest group on field crops. And this afternoon, we are very lucky that we will have two renowned speakers to highlight on the aspect of biofortification. And I think biofortification is very timely with this stage of pandemic worldwide, wherein food is really a major constraints in many, particularly the developing countries. So in the first topic, where we will be having the biofortification, a fundamental strategy to reduce worldwide malnutrition. We will have a speaker who originated from Mexico. He is a Maize Breeder, and he worked at the, how do you call this, CMET, as corn breeder. He also worked under HarvestPlus, and he was also a sweet corn breeder in the sweet corn breeding program of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And he is a maize breeder in the Malaysian seed company Green World Genetics. And at this time, the presenter is currently pursuing his PhD degree at the University Sultan Zainal Abidin. And we are very lucky this afternoon to have our first speaker, Mr. Germán Mingramm. Let's all welcome Mr. Mingramm to present his topic on biofortification. Mr. Mingramm, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Frisco, for the very nice introduction. Let's see if, let me just share my. No, you're not. Can you see the slides?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay. So thank you very much again, Dr. Frisco, for the introduction. And I am very pleased and honored to be with all of you. And I hope you get something out of this talk. And at the end, I can also have some comments and feedback from all of you. And in order to improve and do something, just as Dr. Chua was mentioning, it's important to do something against all these problems, to improve and not see them like some negative impediments. So the topic of this presentation, just as Dr. Frisco mentioned, is biofortification, fundamental strategy to reduce worldwide malnutrition. The outline of this presentation: first, I will talk briefly about the worldwide malnutrition, some stats and numbers, then the causes and consequences of malnutrition, strategies to reduce malnutrition. Then I will talk briefly about biofortified crops in general, and then about nutritious food and its acceptance by the market. Finally, the conclusions. Worldwide malnutrition. 31% of the world's population is food insecure. It means that from the 7 billion people that are in the world, 2 billion of them are food insecure. However, 33% of those 2 billion people live in severe food insecurity, which is 10% of the entire world's population, which is quite alarming. And if we translate this into numbers, it means that 819 million people are suffering severe food insecurity, which is quite serious. So I wanted to show you this map of the world to see how malnutrition appears. And as you can see, it's mostly represented by regions. There are regions or continents that are more affected than others. If we start by looking into America, it's very notorious that there's like a kind of a yellow band, starting from Mexico all the way to the upper part of South America. So it means that in this part, it's very dominant a percentage of malnutrition per country between 5 to almost 15%. There are, of course, exceptions, like the developed countries in America, like the US, Canada, Brazil, Uruguay, that have a very controlled malnutrition levels, no, less than 2.5%, or there are very drastic cases such as Venezuela, that is between 25 and 34%, or even worse, like Haiti, that is above the 35%. Then we have Africa, that again is even more serious than America. It has like a constant behavior per country between 5 to almost 25%. And there are countries that have much more worse malnutrition percentages, no? Such as Madagascar, Chad, Liberia, no? Those countries have malnutrition percentages above the 35%. And in the top, in the upper part of Africa, you can see that it's more controlled, no? Not as controlled as a developed country, but is reasonably okay. Asia, we can see that it's kind of divided, no, between the northern part of Asia and what we could say as Southeast Asia, no. In the upper part of Asia is mostly behaving as a developed country, quite control their malnutrition percentages. But the Southeast Asia, with the exception of Malaysia, have malnutrition levels very similar to the ones in Central America and many parts of Africa, no? Which ranges between the 5 and 15%. Then if we see Australia and most countries in Europe also behave as developed countries, no? Here you can see how the evolution of malnutrition has been appearing in the last years, no? Mostly from 2005 up to 2020, no? So we can see that starting from 2005 up to 2014, each year the percentages of malnutrition starts decreasing, and it had like a very constant rhythm, no? The levels of how it was lowering, it was very constant, no? Then we had like around 5 years that it remains kind of steady, very constant, between 8.3 to 8.4. But then by the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, we had this phenomenon called the COVID-19, that it came to make a lot of noise in our equation, and whatever was all started to be controlled, started to be again very uncontrolled, no? So after having a malnutrition levels of 8.4, it started to raise between 9.2 to 10.4, no? Which translated into numbers, it means that compared with the previous year, with 2019, in 2020, that the number of people that are undernourished have raised 180 million people, no? So it's quite serious, no? And it's definitely not under control, and we definitely need to do something against it, no? Because it's terrible, this situation. So after understanding with these numbers how the situation and alarming that this reality really is, we need to understand what are the causes and consequences that have been resulting in this malnutrition, no? Of course, there are many causes that have been already identified and known for many years, no? Such as poverty, lack of food access, diseases, conflicts, climate change, a lack of safe drinkable water, no? And if you can see, many of these variables or factors are kind of related, no? If there's poverty, it will be linked, or there will be lack of access to food, there will be diseases, a lack of safe drinkable water, and also if there are conflicts, no? So if one of these variables enters to the equation, it will make a lot of noise in the others, no? So there are different reasons why there's malnutrition, no? And how it's so gigantic and growing. However, in 2019, as I was mentioning, in addition to all these factors, COVID-19 started to play in the game. So if it was not enough, now with this new phenomenon, increase the numbers of that people under nourishment. The consequence that malnutrition has caused in humans is the reduction in muscle function, the reduction in respiratory function, the reduction in gastrointestinal function, the reduction in the immune system or function, and of course the psychosocial effects in people that are being affected. So now we have understood the numbers, how it's increasing, and then definitely it's not under total control for the causes and consequences. So we definitely need to have a plan, alternatives to solve these problems and to do something against it, to control it, or to even avoid it to happen, no? So these are some strategies to prevent malnutrition to happen, no? Or to control it. The first is supplementation, food fortification, dietary diversification, and finally we have biofortification. The dietary diversification is just having like a balanced diet, a diet that contains all types of food in the right proportion, no? It has the right amount of carbohydrates, protein, fats or oil, vitamins, minerals, salts, and water, depending on the desired needs of the body, no? So, and getting this
Hi, Mr. Herman. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. You were freezing, so I was just checking.
Oh,
okay. Right.
I'm okay?
Yes, you are
Okay.
back now.
Okay. There is the practice of adding vitamins and minerals to commonly consumed foods, especially foods that were processed, no, processed foods. So this process of food fortifications occurs in the industry, no. Once the fresh produce or whatever is being processed is being developed in the industry, then these vitamins or minerals are being added there, no. So this is another alternative for people that cannot have access to these very balanced foods or diets. With addition of this fortified food, like in cereals, yogurts, eggs, ham, cheese, etc., they can have like more nutritious food than if they wouldn't, right? Then we have the supplementation. Supplementation, it's any product that supplements the diet with vitamins, mineral herbs, or other botanical amino acids. It increases the total of dietary intake. No, these are pills or vitamins that you take, but are of a specific element or a specific vitamin that your body is deficient of. No, so in that way, if you know that you are deficient of vitamin A or iron or zinc, you complement or add to your diets this specific element to fulfill the deficiencies. Finally, we have the biofortification. That is the addition of nutrients to natural crops, no? Through agronomical practices, such as plant breeding or molecular techniques, or modern biotechnological techniques, no? If it's through plant breeding, it's in conventional plant breeding programs that it not only focuses in improving agronomic traits, but also to improve a specific nutrient, no? So here I wanted to show you this table where you can see the comparison between each of the different strategies and its pros and cons. Starting with a dietary diversification, we can see it's a short-term intervention. We can see the results and effects of it in a very short time. And it's ideal to alleviate malnutrition. Why? Because you're getting to the body your natural sources, no? Fruits, vegetables, in a very diversified way. No? However, not all the people can have access to this alternative, no? Especially people in developing countries like Africa or in very remote areas. They can just afford staple foods, no? Such as rice, wheat, and maize, and they cannot access to the other ones because of the lack of purchase capacity. No? So this alternative is kind of out of their hands. No? Then we have the food fortification alternative, which is also a short-term and immediate intervention. There are successful cases, such as the iodine fortification that has helped to eliminate iodine deficiencies. However, there are also unsuccessful stories. No? For instance, the iron fortification. As iron compounds, once they are absorbed, they tend to leach and change the food taste, which is definitely not something desirable. No? As especially if this taste is already likable or attractive for the people. No? As it was mentioned before, these alternatives is already is very cost effective. However, it still requires to be cheaper, no? As it's tends to its aim is to get as much people as possible, and these people are mostly in remote areas, no? So if it's cheaper, it's better, but it also has a cost to produce them, no? The supplementation is the best short-term intervention, involving from the process of the pills itself up to the distribution of these pills to the final consumer. No? However, this alternative is kind of unsustainable, as there can be antagonistic effects of one element over another one. For instance, zinc pills can affect the absorption of calcium. No? As I was saying before, no, you are adding specific elements or vitamins to your system, to your body. So at the end of the day, you're kind of unbalancing your body. No, you're giving more of a nutrient, but perhaps it can block or limitate the absorption of the other one. So it's definitely not something that is desirable. No? Finally, we have the strategy of biofortification, which at the end of the day is the most cost-effective and sustainable approach. However, in contrast with the other alternatives, this is the one that takes the longest time, no? As it takes around 6 to 8 years to develop a cultivar with improved nutritional status. Biofortified crops. Here, I wanted to show you this set of 3 tables, and in each table you can see the 3 different continents where biofortified crops have been developed. No? In the column of the very left of each of the 3 tables, you can see the countries, and then you can see that each table is highlighted either in purple, green, orange, and pink. Each color represents the element that was added to the different crops. No? So, for instance, if it's purple, it means that iron was added, for instance, to bean and pearl millet. If it's highlighted in green, it means that zinc was added to maize, rice, and wheat. If it's highlighted in orange, it means that it was added with vitamin A to banana, cassava, maize, and sweet potato. If it's highlighted with pink, it means that both iron and zinc were added to the crop, such as cowpea, Irish potato, lentil, and sorghum. Then you can see that in the cells, there are sometimes an R, and there's also sometimes a T. R is for those crops that are already being released and are available for the farmer, and in consequence, they are also ready for consumption. No? The T are still in the testing phase, right? Some words about the biofortification progress in the last years. So over the past 18 years, research conducted by HarvestPlus and its partners has demonstrated that conventional crop breeding can increase the levels, the nutrient levels without compromising yields and other preferred traits first. And physical abilities. Farmers are willing to grow biofortified crops and consumers are willing to eat them, while the cost effectiveness and impact of different delivery models are tested to inform scaling up of biofortification. When targeted correctly, biofortification can contribute to improvement of food systems to deliver nutritious food cost effectively and with minimum behavior change. Topic 5, nutritious food and its acceptance by the market. Studies have revealed that price and taste are factors that influence more on food choice rather than the health benefits. No, so the number one factor that the consumers mostly are going to prefer is if it's tasty or not. Then if it's cheap, and finally if it will bring like a benefit to its health. No? However, each time more and more the consumer is getting more conscious about its own health, no? And also is getting aware that this health that he's looking for could be obtained through a product. And this, at the end, has been the strongest factor for this consumer to start consuming products that have nutritional and health claims, which are all these nutritional information that the products have. No? So they have understood that with a product, they can increase their health status. And also, consumers have become more and more convinced that good taste and healthiness do not necessarily have to be traded off against each other. It means that they can find something that is really delicious and also healthy. Not for being healthy, it means that it's ugly or not tasty at all. No, it can have the two desirable characteristics. No, there are three main categories that influence consumers' food choice with nutrition health claims. First, related with the product-related factors. No, it means that if the consumer is able to relate with how this product was produced, if it's something really unrelatable, the consumer will not be very confident to consume it, no? Because it's already something totally unknown. But if the consumer gets related, it's easy. It will be easier to consume this product, no? And also how this product is presenting to him or to her, no? If it's in an attractive way, it will be easier to get it, no? Then in the claim factors itself, no? How these factors, how the nutritional information is being shown to the consumer, no? If it's really complex and very and it's not understandable at all because it's written with very only scientific words that not are understandable for the average people, then it will be also a reason for not to consume the product, or at least not using this as a factor for consuming it. No? And also this factor needs to be attractive visually. No? I know that this nutritional information is just numbers, and you are telling how much about each element, no? But at least it has to be visually attractive for the consumer to get it. No? And finally, there are other factors related to the consumer itself. No? We need to understand that we belong to distinct demographies. No? So that the people or the sectors that are developing the product need to understand to which specific sector they are directing their product, no? To which country they are dealing, no? So in that way, if they understand, for instance, if the culture of that specific country that they want to direct their product, there's no culture of consuming products that have these nutritional claims. In consequence, it will be very difficult to make the consumer consume products that have these claims, right? However, if it's the opposite case, and there's a culture of consuming products with these claims, it will be easier to introduce them to this sector, no? This idea or this factor is kind of related of the level of trust that the consumers of a specific demography have with their authorities, the authorities that implement and guide these nutritional facts, the claims, no? If the consumers have like a lot of trust in them, in whatever they implement and guide and recommend according to these claims, they will easily follow whatever they recommend. But if it's the opposite, if they don't trust them, they will just do the opposite of what they recommend, no? So that's why it's very important, this level of trust, like in most countries, no? So mostly in the countries where trust to this authority is fundamental, no? There are other countries like in China where the consumers are mostly based in how functional the product is, more than a trust thing, no? So you also need to understand how the demography works for this specific region where you want to direct your product, no? And also understanding to which gender or age range should be better to locate your product, or that will be more suitable for them, no? If it's something nutritional, which specific disease or a condition are you looking for to reduce with your product, no? As it has more nutrients in this specific elements that will help them reduce this disease, no? So just showing these benefits will also help the consumers to buy, no? And also the interesting part is that the tendency is not only for the malnourished people to consume nutritious food, but also all types of markets, and this can little by little be like a whole trend, no, a whole tendency, no? And is everything linked, no? It has to do also how the level of trust is built between the authorities and the consumers and the whole food industry, no? Food system. And then how little by little you get them consume more healthy, become more aware about their health, etc. No? Conclusions. First, the number of undernourished people in the world has augmented significantly. Around 880 million people, more than in 2019, face hunger in 2020, as in addition to its regular causes, that COVID-19 has affected considerably the lives of many. Moreover, this situation should encourage us to support strongly on the different strategies that could help reduce the impact of malnutrition. These strategies are supplementation, food fortification, dietary diversification, and biofortification. Likewise, within these four strategies, biofortification is the most cost-effective and sustainable one, despite the fact that is the one with the longest term for a positive effect, and it has demonstrated that biofortified crops could increase the nutritional level without compromising yield and other traits preferred by farmers. That the addition of nutrients to the crops could increase the health as well as the cognitive and physical abilities of the consumers. That farmers are willing to grow these biofortified crops and consumers are willing to eat them. And that biofortification can contribute to the improvement of food systems to deliver nutritious food cost effectively and with minimum behavior change. Price and tastes are factors that influence more in food choice rather than products' health benefits. However, each time the consumer is getting more and more conscious about its health, so understanding that they could obtain this healthy status by consuming a product is what has influenced people mostly to consume food with nutritional health claims. In addition, people each time is getting more and more convinced that good taste and healthiness do not necessarily have to be traded off against each other, as there could be very tasty food with high nutritional value. Understanding the factors that at the end of the day affect positively or negatively the acceptance of food with NHCs is quite a mystery still. Notwithstanding, as time passes, scientists understand better what are the main aspects that determine this question. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Herman, for the presentation. So may I invite Dr. Frisco for to the Q&A session with Mr. Herman, please?
Yes.
Currently,
Yeah, Kuna, my video.
Moment, please. Okay. So for attendees, if you have any question, please put your question in the Q&A box.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Mingramm, I think there is one question in the Q&A from GB PUAA and PT Patnagar about India. Sufficient production of food grains are there, but considerable population suffering from malnutrition. What opinion is yours to resolve the situation? So the person is asking your suggestion or opinion regarding that situation in India, Mr. Mingramm.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, this question, because I think it's kind of linked to what I was saying, no? That for instance, the ideal solution is the dietary diversification, no? That each one of us gets in its dietary intake a very diversified set of vegetables or crops into their diet. But there are these other these people from developing countries or remote areas or poor countries. This is just like something like a dream, no? like kind of not reachable. So like in the case of India, no, they are saying that they are okay in a good rhythm by producing grains. Okay, but they are not mentioning anything about a diversified set of vegetables or crops, no? So just vegetables. So is then we're returning to the problem of the dietary diversification. No? It's a very beautiful and romantic approach. But what about those people that cannot get to this diversified diet, no? And only get grains or staple foods like maize, rice, wheat, etc. No, so why not to make these staple foods more nutritious? So having biofortified crops for these grains is ideal, no? Especially if many people depend on these crops, right? And is mostly the highest percentage of what they receive daily, no? So also it would be, before starting the program, understanding in what specific nutrients the population is lacking of mostly, to start like a more conscious.
I think Mr. Herman has connection issues.
Yeah, I cannot.
Yeah. So while waiting for the speaker to come back.
Yeah, I think Mr. Mingramm.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Mr. Mingramm, I have one question for you.
Yes, please, Dr. Frisco.
Yeah, in relation to the Asia Pacific Seed Association members, the biofortification is really a very important topic as far as major field crops is concerned. So among the major field crops in Asia and the Pacific, what specific crop is already developed or biofortified, as far as you know?
Well, if you want, I can show you here the table.
Major only, not all. I'm just asking of
for majors, like I think that the most important one is maize. Maize is for vitamin A. I think I can show you. Let me. Wheat also, rice. There's a biofortification in rice. Let me share this table. You can see here. Can you see?
No, I cannot.
Oh, okay.
I think it's still loading. So
just mention. You can mention only say for the staple crop, say for rice, for corn, or for major vegetable. What are the available crops that biofortification has been done, and the seed is already approved for commercialization?
Oh yeah, so it's maize, wheat, banana. I think for most of the ones that are already in the have been developed or in this idea of being developed are seeds available for the farmer. We here I don't know if you're able to see the table. If not, I can just tell you. But there are many. The ones that are already released is, for instance, the bean for iron that has been added in bean. Then we have and this is for specific countries, no? But let's say just by crop, let's say bean. Then we have per millet. Then banana, maize, sweet potato, Irish potato. But for the main, I would say maize, wheat, sorghum, maybe also sweet potato, and beans also are definitely very important.
So that means there are already many field crops that were biofortified, and these are already being commercialized in Asia and the Pacific.
Yeah, and the idea is mostly for people in developing countries, right? For smallholders, so they can. It's mostly for self-consumption. But yeah, the idea is also to sell them, huh? Not only to give them the seeds for free, to integrate this to the whole chain as a business, no? So it will be more helpful for them, because they can also have like a new tool for getting money, no? So yeah, if there are crops that are already being released, or also they are in the play for being set in the market, no, for being sold and.
Thank you so much, Mr. Herman. We have 5 minutes left. So in the meantime, let us go to the question that got most like in the Q&A box.
Okay.
Yes. So if you can see from the Q&A box, the question from Rachna Agribusiness got four likes, that will a cultivar with improved nutrition require more fertilizer application? If yes, it can increase cost of production or not?
Which question is it?
The one from Rachna Agribusiness.
Okay. Will a cultivar with improved nutrition will require? So I think this is a little interesting question, because I think that having more nutritional characteristic doesn't necessarily have to be that it needs more fertilizer. No, I think those are characteristics that are a little independent, but it has to do more with other types of genetic characteristics. No, perhaps yes, perhaps not, and also it has to do with how the soil is connecting with that specific variety. No. So it wouldn't be responsible to say, no, for biofortified crops you need less or you need more, no, because it depends, no, in many other variables. You need to understand the soil, the situation. Perhaps in one location you definitely need less, or in others you need more. So it's very open, no?
Okay. Kuna, do we still have time? Kuna?
Sorry. We have 2 minutes to go.
Yeah, I have one. Can I have one last question? Or we still have many questions in the chat box?
Yes, so the question that will cannot be answered during the time, we'll share to Mr. Herman, and then we'll post on APSA website.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay, so Mr. Herman, thank you very much for the presentation, and we have a few unanswered questions which we will.
Few can be answered
Yeah.
by Dr. Binu.
I think a few can also be answered by the next speaker, Dr. Binu, as well. So thank you very much, Mr. Herman, for the great presentation.
No, thank you.
All right. So let us move to the next speaker, Dr. Binu Cherian, who will present on the topic of related to biofortification as well. The topic of presentation is Scaling Up Biofortification for Nutritious and Sustainable Food Systems. Dr. Binu Cherian is the country manager for HarvestPlus in India. HarvestPlus is a global program under Agriculture for Nutrition and Health of CGIAR that develops and deploys biofortified food staple crops in Asia, Africa, and also in Latin America. So Dr. Binu leads the cross-discipline integration of research and development, building partnerships and developing market strategy for an efficient delivery of biofortified crops in India. So before he joined HarvestPlus, he had worked with private sector for more than 20 years, and he has experience in managing large-scale cultivation programs, strategic sourcing of raw materials for optimum quality, building sustainable supply chain linkages from farm to gate, and commercialization of projects in different geographies. So Dr. Binu, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kuna, for that introduction. Respected Dr. May and all the APSA members, on behalf of HarvestPlus, wish to thank this opportunity to be a part of this webinar series. Dr. Chua Kim Atik, respected moderator, Dr. Frisco Malaban, and my previous speaker, Mr. Germán Mingramm. Thank you for that interesting presentation. HarvestPlus has been working in the field of biofortification for the last 15, 20 years. We have been working in Asia, Africa, Latin America for disseminating and development of biofortified crops. Next slide, please. So I think many of these slides have been covered by my previous speaker, so I'll rush a little faster in some of these slides. As the previous speaker rightly points out, that there are more than 2 billion people affected by malnutrition globally. And the challenge, next slide, please. And the challenge of biofortification, the malnutrition, is that that it brings in blindness, stunting, mental retardation, learning disabilities or cognitive disabilities, and of course, there's an economic loss and a productivity loss for the country. Next slide, please. So in India alone, if you were to look at it, next slide, please. India alone, if you were to look at India, loses close to about $12 billion in GDP due to malnutrition. And the COVID situation today, disruption of supply chains, and if you were to look at the non-availability of nutritious food, especially at the bottom of the pyramid, and the growing climate change, rise in carbon dioxide, which is reducing what I call as the micronutrient levels of the staple food crops like rice and wheat, which is now established. So this is something that the biofortification can solve. Developing nutritious, healthy, micronutrient-rich staple food crops, when consumed on a day-to-day basis, it improves and brings in a measurable health impact. As my previous speaker has rightly pointed out, that the ideal strategy is to access to have diverse diet. So that still remains a challenge in many of the geographies and many of the sections of the society to have a cost-effective, nutritious, healthy diet. There are existing interventions like supplementation and fortification, which has been there for many, many years. And the linking agriculture to nutrition that we are working on is biofortification. It has some advantages. Next slide, please. Over the existing interventions, but I would like to mention is that fortification and supplementation and biofortification will complement each other in many of the geographies where we work. Next slide, please. See, the advantage of biofortification is that it is a cost-effective strategy because most of the investments are front-loaded and which has no additional cost to the farmers who consume. The second is that biofortification as a strategy is based on the crops that the people consume, except I would say vitamin A crops where the color changes. But most of the mineral-rich crops like iron and zinc the color doesn't change, the taste doesn't change in most of them. When it comes to a biofortification strategy, it's based on the crops that people consume. Second is biofortification also is an evidence-based strategy. Scientific, there is a constant endeavor to provide the proof of concept for biofortified crops. And then the advantage is readily available to all the members of the household. Next slide, please. So the process of biofortification, those of you who are very new to this topic on biofortification, starts from, agriculturists, economists, social scientists, nutritionists, plant breeders coming together to understand the target population. And once that is done, the nutritionists set the nutrient targets for these crops. Plant breeders go back to their germplasm gene bank, and they analyze or they test these or screen their germplasm to understand what is the variability of the micronutrients that is in the germplasm. And once that is established, the breeding process starts, and the plant breeders then evaluate these crops for the stability of the performance, both the performance, agronomic performance, and the micronutrient stability across the geography and environment. Once that is done, the nutritionists test these crops for the nutrient retention and loss. And once that is done, these crops are released for cultivation in the respective countries. Depending on the infrastructure that you have in the respective country, for example, if it is, if you have a private sector, public sector, NGO, whatever infrastructure, these crops are promoted in the respective countries. So if you were to look at in a nutshell, biofortification is an evidence-based strategy, and it requires a multidisciplinary approach. That means the economists, plant breeders, nutritionists working together to make biofortification successful. Next slide, please. So the nutrition studies, the nutritionists test what is the average daily food consumption. And then they look at, is there any nutrient loss while cooking? And is there any loss during storage? Once that is established, then the nutritionists then do an efficacy study. Efficacy study is a control study, and to prove that there is an absorption and the retention, and there is an impact of micronutrients in the body. And after many years of dissemination, then the effectiveness studies is conducted on the ground where in a community where the biofortified crops have been adopted. Next slide, please. So what HarvestPlus does is HarvestPlus has works in partnership with the National Agricultural Research System, the state agriculture universities, private sector, public sector, farmers producer groups. So there are four intersections at which HarvestPlus works to ensure there's a constant supply of material. That is the seed availability of breeder seed, foundation seed, work closely with the National Agricultural Research System, and how to support the farmers in terms of the seed supply. Second is that how do we stimulate demand for these biofortified crops, working closely with the value chain actors to create awareness, which is still challenging because biofortified crops are not very well known in the farming community. So how do we create awareness, stimulate demand for biofortified crops? Then is what we work is on the policy framework. Policy framework, how do we link these nutritious crop into the existing food and nutrition program? For example, India has one of the largest food and nutrition program. How can these nutritious crops can be integrated and into these food and nutrition program? And the last component that we passionately work is to create evidences for nutritious crops. Next slide, please. And that is something that we have been working to prove the concept of biofortification. Dr. Howdy Boyce, the founder of HarvestPlus, the idea of biofortification. There were three questions were asked 15 or 20 years back when the whole the concept of biofortification started. Is it really possible to breed micronutrient-rich staple food crops? The nutritionists asked the question was that is the increase in the micronutrients, will it be bioavailable and it can impact to the health of the person? And the last question was that is it, do the farmers adopt these biofortified crops? Next slide, please. In the last 15, 20 years, if you were to look at, there are more than 400 varieties of biofortified crops have been released in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Dr. Howdy Buis also was the recipient of the 2016 World Food Prize for his pioneering effort done in the field of biofortification in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Next slide, please. So these are the crops that HarvestPlus focuses on. Iron crops, this pearl millet, and iron beans. Pearl millet is largely focused in India. Beans are focused for Africa. The zinc crops that we focus is zinc wheat, zinc rice, and zinc maize. Wheat and rice is a major focus in Asia, especially the programs that HarvestPlus has in India and Bangladesh, and we are starting a program in Indonesia with rice. Wheat is focused in India and Pakistan at this point of time, and a little bit in Bangladesh. Zinc maize is largely we are focusing in Latin America and Africa. The vitaminic crops that we focus is on sweet potato, orange cassava, and orange maize. So this is the portfolio that we have been focusing. Apart from that, we had a collaborative project in India with GP Pantnagar on cowpeas, and we also focus a little bit on lentils, iron and zinc lentils. Next slide, please. So the primary beneficiaries of biofortification are the smallholder farmers. 400 million smallholder farmers, they grow and they consume. And they are the primary beneficiaries of biofortified crops. We work very closely with the farmer organizations, as I mentioned before, state agriculture universities, seed companies, and non-government organization to promote these biofortified crops in the country. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, biofortified crops can only be successful if there is a positive evidence in terms of health indicators. In the last many years, HarvestPlus have done many nutrition studies. In India, we have done a nutrition study on iron pearl millet, which establishes that iron pearl millet, after consuming about 7 months, it increases the cognitive functions of children, that means learning ability in children. This was done in Maharashtra in collaboration with SNDT University and Cornell. Similarly, we have done also a high zinc wheat biofortified wheat study, which also establishes there is an improvement in the micronutrient status, as well as there is also a prevention of morbidity, especially in children. Next slide, please. So over the years, this is the journey of HarvestPlus. The program of biofortification started way back in 2003, 2007. It was still a discovery phase. Is it possible? It is not possible. Concepts were designed. 2008, 2010, these varieties were developed. And then by 2013, 2017, many of these crops went to the field for cultivation. And 2018 onwards, we call it as a rapid scale phase. Now, all these, what I mean to say, concept, design, and products are developed. And we know that farmers are willing to grow. And we also know that these crops make a health impact in the human body. Next slide, please. So these are the 4 strategies that HarvestPlus have been working on. The first is a long-term strategy, what we call is mainstreaming. How do we improve the nutrition levels of the germplasm? And this is a long-term strategy, what we call it as a long-term strategy, where so that after many years, these improve the nutrition, which is higher in micronutrients, when the crops are developed with these micronutrient-rich germplasm, every crop that is developed is a biofortified crops. The second, we work very passionately to strengthen the partnership in the value chain so that the primary beneficiaries, smallholder farmers, as well as this also becomes sustainable for seed companies so that there is a larger adoption and reach of biofortified crops. And then we work on policy environment, how to link favorable policies for biofortified crops in all the countries that we work. And then we work, as I mentioned, as the scientific evidence. We communicate scientific evidence so that a favorable policy is developed for biofortified crops. Next slide, please. So apart from that, that is what I was mentioning is the primary pathway. HarvestPlus works across the value chain, right from the agriculture research to the retail. That is what we believe, that this value chain approach will help in creating long-term sustainable markets for biofortified crops. So we have a very dedicated program at HarvestPlus of working from the serial number 3, agriculture supply, to the retail, and what we call it as commercialization of biofortified crops. And that is what we have been passionately working in the last 2-3 months. How do we create that last mile supply chain from the grain to the market? So it has many incentive. Farmers has an incentive because there is a ready market for somebody who comes and buys these biofortified crops. There can also be a constant demand, as well as there's a constant preferable pricing, which is still not existing in many of the markets, and which can also be developed. Next slide, please. So in India, the program of HarvestPlus started way back in 2004, the breeding activities, and HarvestPlus has a very strong and partnership with the Indian Council for Agricultural Research, state agriculture universities, private seed companies, and FPOs. And under this partnership, our partners have developed. The first was a variety, iron pearl millet variety, which was commercialized in 2012, and from 2013 to almost now 2020, more than 10 hybrids of iron-rich pearl millet have been developed by universities in Maharashtra, in Rajasthan, in Haryana, in Gujarat. And in many of the places, we have a partnership with the private and public seed companies to take these crops to the field. In the same way, we also have a partnership for zinc wheat. We have 2 varieties of zinc wheat developed. And last week, one of our partners, BHU, has developed another variety of zinc wheat. And we started a program in the eastern UP, and subsequently now we have this program of zinc wheat in Uttar Pradesh, and also in Bihar and in Punjab. And more than 600,000 farmers grow and cultivate zinc wheat, and close to about 6 million people benefit out of biofortified crops in India. Next slide, please. And these are some of the pictures that you see. How do we start promoting? How do we work with our partners in promoting biofortified crops? We work with our partners to establish product demonstrations in the field, so that farmers come and farmers see their crops. We do a lot of participatory variety trials in partnership with the farmers, so that farmers have the first feel of the product. For private sector seed companies and public sector seed companies, we do a lot of training program so that they know what is the benefit of biofortified crops, and they can readily communicate these to the farming community. We all do a lot of point of sales engagement for communicating the benefits of biofortified crops. We do a lot of farmers meeting in partnership with our partners to communicate about the benefits of biofortified crops. In Africa, there's a different way of promotion. You must be seeing the pictures. In Nigeria, for example, they developed a lot of movies in partnership with the Nollywood for in biofortified crops. They have developed a lot of rock songs to communicate about the benefit of biofortified crops. Next slide, please. So these are some of the varieties. There were 9 varieties of zinc rice varieties have been developed in Bangladesh. And we have a very strong program of rice in Bangladesh. This is the same model that I mentioned, a strong partnership with the National Agriculture Research Center, International Rice Research Center, and universities in order to develop these varieties in Bangladesh. Next slide, please. And there are more than close to about 1,800 tons of seed is distributed in Bangladesh. And similarly, we have a program in Pakistan where 2 zinc wheat varieties have been released, and close to about 28,000 tons of seed is produced and distributed in Pakistan. Next slide, please. And India has been a leader in biofortified crops. Last year, the Honorable Prime Minister endorsed biofortified crops, and he mentioned that not only biofortified crops should be grown and consumed by the farmer, but there's also should be emphasized these biofortified crops should also be incorporated into the larger food and nutrition program in the country. India procures about, the government of India procures close to about 20 to 25% of rice wheat production to be distributed in the public distribution system and the large midday meal program and other nutritious food program where biofortified crops should be incorporated. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of policy effort which is going on in the field of biofortified crop, and which is also what we believe that it's a very critical lever to scale biofortified crops. And from a food perspective, we believe that biofortified crops also has a lot of advantage. For example, the big food trends that is happening in the food arena is that meat-free, clean label, natural, ethical. So that's where also the biofortified crops qualify very well. There are a lot of food companies now interested to develop food products used as ingredients for biofortified crops. There are some products already on the shelf, and we believe that if there is a natural supply chain for biofortified crops, this will have a long-term sustainable demand and market for biofortified crops. Next slide, please. So this is the impact pathway that we believe for commercialization of biofortified crops. It will start from a smallholder farmers, and slowly these crops will get into urban and local food system, and then large food production of biofortified crops will start. And that is what we have been working, and we have been working very closely with the SMEs and MSMEs, where we encourage a small production unit to incorporate biofortified crops into their product pipeline. Next slide, please. And we have been closely working with some of the food companies. How do we help in intermediation, and how do we help them in application of these food products at scale? We have a collaborative program for some of the products that we are working on to develop from a food perspective. Next slide, please. These are some of the examples of, for example, a zinc wheat flour to be commercialized in India. Some of the challenges at this point of time, which I like to mention, is that in many of the countries that we work in, the supply chain systems for nutritious crops like biofortification is not very efficient. For example, it's not easy to traceability issue. There is a lack of aggregation of biofortified crops. And the other challenge of biofortified crops is that it is invisible. For example, iron and zinc, they are invisible trait. So very difficult to make a distinction between a biofortified and non-biofortified. So HarvestPlus has been working very closely on developing technologies to develop a high throughput, for testing minerals in India. In India, we have a very strong laboratory service, and we encourage our partners to use this laboratory to screen not only the germplasm, also the advanced pipelines, so that they can improve the efficiencies of their biofortified crop development. So we have been doing that for the last many years, supporting our stakeholders to help in screening their germplasm advanced pipeline. So this is one example. We're working with a flour mill in India in order to create a segregated supply system for them. And we are working very closely with them, and we have understood the forecast of the grain requirement. And now we have gone back to create a vertical integrated program, so that there's a constant supply of a traceable segregated zinc wheat grain for them. The challenge in India is that many of the food companies are not very vertically integrated. So if it comes to wheat, most of the procurement happens at the grain market, or India, what we call it as the mandis, or the grain market. So next slide, please. We also have been working on some of the technologies. For example, we have started working on some digital technology wherein we are trying to collect information of the farmers that they grow biofortified crops. We started this endeavor last year in UP, and we started in Bihar. But due to COVID situations, we couldn't move it very faster. So this year we once again. So our idea is that how do we identify farmers who are growing this biofortified products, whether it is rice, pearl millet, or wheat, and so that we can create a system and pass it on to the buyers who are interested to buy these crops directly from the farmers. We also are working on a blockchain technology, and for traceability, we are planning to do a pilot this year, this wheat season. These are some of the photographs of the biofortified crops which are already being commercialized in many of the countries. For example, vitamin A sweet potato flour in Uganda, iron beans in Rwanda, vitamin A cassava in Nigeria, and iron beans in Colombia, and zinc rice in Bangladesh. We also, as I mentioned, we are also commercializing a zinc wheat in India. Next slide, please. These are some of the photographs, once again, the partnership that we have from small manufacturing enterprises, large manufacturing enterprises who are interested to commercialize biofortified crops. Next slide, please. So this is the overall strategy of biofortification program of HarvestPlus. How do we, what we believe is that there are 4 intersections of the value chain, and any small pivot that we can do at this intersection can create large-scale demand and sustainable markets for biofortified crops. The first intersection, what we believe, is the initial pathway that we call it as the seed variety development. And you need to create constant waves of new products in the market so that there's a sustainable demand for biofortified varieties. So we work very closely. We have been working closely with the National Agriculture Research Center, Seed Company. Our mission has been to encourage our partners to produce more varieties so that there's a constant demand and supply of new products in them. Our endeavor also is to work at the grassroots level so that the communities understand the benefit of a consumption of these grains. As you all know, that the large part of the production of staples like rice, wheat are consumed on the farm. More than 50 to 60% of the production is consumed on the farm. So communication plays a very important role, is that to communicate the benefits of consuming biofortified nutritious grains. And that is the primary mission of HarvestPlus, how to increase the household nutrition of the community. But as we, in the last 15 years, what we have felt that as the production of these biofortified grains becomes surplus on the ground, and how do we connect these nutritious grain into large food public sector programs as well as the consumer markets. This is what we have been working. There's a very favorable traction from the government interest, especially in India, how to integrate into the large food and nutrition program, which requires a lot of investments and time, because as I mentioned, there's no natural last mile activities for nutritious food. So we have been working with some of our partners now. For example, the Syngenta Foundation. We have been working with Dehat, these kind of organizations which work at the last mile to make that happen. And then is a large interest from the food companies to create consumer food products. Some of them are already on the shelf, like and some are in the pipeline. And we are also working on, for example, to develop food standards for biofortified crop, which is still not existing in many of the countries. These standards will help to create more traction in the field of biofortification. Next slide, please. These are some of the recognitions in the last 15 years where HarvestPlus has received. 2008, the Copenhagen Consensus, where biofortification was ranked 5th. It is some of the biggest challenges can be solved with the investments that you're making. The Copenhagen Consensus said that with the $1 of investment, there is an impact of $17. The founder of HarvestPlus was the recipient of the most prestigious World Food Prize in 2016. The Time magazine ranked the biofortification as the 25th best invention to solve the public health challenges. And 2018, it figured in the Citigroup's Feed the Future report. Next slide, please. So our goal is to reach about 1 billion people by 2030 with biofortified crops. Next slide, please. And these are some of the partners that we work in India: international research centers, Indian Council of Agriculture Research, universities in Punjab, in UP, in Bihar, in Odisha, and a lot of private sector seed companies, community organizations, and farmer groups. Next slide, please. So with that, I think so I'll pause here. I'll be happy to take up any questions. Once again, on behalf of HarvestPlus, I wish to thank APSA for giving this opportunity to HarvestPlus to communicate about their biofortification as a strategy to improve, not only improve the food systems in the long run, but also to tackle malnutrition. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Binu, for the great presentation. May I invite the chair, Dr. Frisco, to moderate the Q&A session, please?
Yeah, Kuna, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Binu, for a very discussed topic this afternoon, this morning. And I think many people will be benefited of this biofortification program of HarvestPlus. And it's very timely, this biofortification, because of this pandemic, wherein many people lost their jobs. They have no money to buy nutritious foods. I mean, those available in the market. The logistic systems were affected, and totally the world suffered a lot when it comes to nutritious foods, availability and access. And this biofortification that you mentioned, for me, the main beneficiaries of this biofortified crops are the smallholder farmers and their access to seeds. But before we discuss the details of this thing, I think we can have the questions in the Q&A box, Kuna, before I discuss later on the two topics.
Sure. So Dr. Binu, if you see the most liked question is from GBPUANT Patnagar. We got 8 likes in this question. In most of the developing countries, that basic objective is to breed for high yield variety because of basic population need and increasing nutrient value is second objective. So what is the most appropriate strategy to make balance between these two aspects? What do you think?
Well, I think so, both. You have to increase the nutrition level. So all the biofortified crops, where you look at it, whether in all the countries where a biofortification effort has been going on, the basic idea is to improve the productivity as well as improve the nutrition. Without an increase in the production, the farmers will not adopt biofortified crops, because the consumers like farmers really don't understand the importance of nutrition. That's the bigger challenge, So as we communicate about biofortified crops, we are talking of, they understand only belly fill. They don't understand nutrition. The stomach should be filled because that's what drives them for their daily work. So biofortified crops, whether we are looking at any of the crops, primary, it should have production, the productivity, and all these biofortified crops, where they look at all these variety, they are higher in yield as well as they're higher in nutrition. And if that doesn't happen, the concept of biofortified crops will not be successful. So that's very ingrained in the production program of biofortification, that it should be higher in yield, it should be higher in nutrition, and it should have all the trait that the farmers look for. You know, for example, if you look at pearl millet, if you take it to Rajasthan, the pearl millet, the height of the pearl millet, they want more than 6 feet. Why? Because it also used as a fodder. It's not only for consumption, but also used as fodder. So plant breeders take care of these sensitive requirements when they develop these biofortified crops. Thank you.
That is a very good explanation. So let us move to the next question from Professor Jayashankar, State Agricultural University. Are there any non-destructive ways to screen the nutrient levels in different crops?
Yes, I'm very happy that you are basically from Hyderabad, so you can always visit our office. You know, so we use X-ray X-ray fluorescent spectrophotometer. That's called XRF. So there's a non-destructive, highly effective technology which gives the plant breeders high throughput to test their germplasm. So over the years of 15, 20 years, we have developed a lot of partnership to come out with some tools, with very high throughput tools. So Professor, anytime you can contact us, you can visit our lab, and we'll be happy to help you. And I think so we have a partnership with University for Pearl Millet Development Program. So you please get in touch with us, or I think so you can also get in touch with ICRISAT or me, or I think so also you can get in touch with Dr. Samir also, and we'll be happy to help you.
Thank you so much. So the next question is from anonymous attendee. How to balance micronutrients in crop production and nutrient availability in the human body?
Yes, so the availability of nutrient in the human body, I don't know whether you're asking the absorption from the soil to the plant, or are you asking a question from body to the absorption into the body? If you're asking the question, if the micronutrients are absorbed from the soil to the plant, if that is the question, then the science still do not know why certain crops behave certain way. For example, biofortification can also be done through agronomically. For example, if you were to apply zinc wheat to wheat, then the wheat absorbs this zinc and it loads onto the grain. But not all the crops behave that way. So agronomic fortification, we have been focusing on. We have a lot of project, especially in Turkey, where they have been doing agronomic fortification. But we don't have all the answers why certain crops behave in certain way in loading micronutrients into the grain.
Kuna, Dr. Malabanan, I have also a question direct to the speaker, in addition to the Q&A. Dr. Binu, since you presented a lot of the crops developed through biofortification with micronutrients in it, we all know that you have mentioned in your presentation that the poor people are not so, giving priorities to this micronutrients or whatever. They are looking at the access, availability to them as food. So any major government program, say for example in India, where we know also a lot of people, are suffering from hunger and malnutrition. Any government program addressing this in collaboration with HarvestPlus? Is there any government program so that the people can access this biofortified crops?
Thank you for the question, sir. There are no special programs, but we are using the existing program to incorporate biofortified crops. For example, we work with the Indian Council for Agriculture Research. They have, in every district, they have a farm school. And these farm school, and the farm schools demonstrate the benefits of biofortified crops.
Okay.
And they also provide the seed availability. Either initially it is for demonstration. So the farmers can take the seed and they can check, evaluate themselves, what is the benefit, on the ground.
Okay.
So that is farm school. We also work with public sector seed companies.
Yeah.
Public sector. So in India, every state has a public sector seed company. So some of the crops in India, for example, rice, wheat is more public sector, a lot of public sector involvement. So that is, we work closely with the public sector seed companies. For example, for pearl millet, we work with the Maharashtra State Seed Corporation. We work with the Karnataka State Seed Corporation. In Bihar, we are working with the Bihar State Seed Corporation. So public sector seed company, because they can provide these seeds at a subsidized cost.
Okay.
But still in India, we have been discussing a lot. Can the biofortified crops can be provided at a little more cost-effective? But that is still a point of discussion, whether there can be a special price for biofortified seed. And as you know, in India, the government also procures grains. So can these biofortified grains can have a special price so that the farmers will adopt these biofortified. So these two are still a policy discussion that is happening.
Okay.
But under the existing infrastructure that we have been using that to promote biofortified crops. But like what you mentioned, the biggest challenge that we have is how to create awareness about biofortified crops. Awareness. So this is what we have been doing wherever, like the farm schools of the government, wherever there are programs we have been doing, but still a lot has to be done in terms of creating awareness about biofortified crops. That's still a challenge, I accept. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Binu. So referring to the question before Dr. Balabanan about the absorbent in soil, how about the absorption in the biofortified crops in humans? Like there's a question, is there any study, for example, the vitamin A is fat soluble, will it be readily absorbed in the bloodstream of the human body?
Yes, most of the crops are pro-vitamin A rich. So there are a lot of studies that have been done on vitamin A crops. I request you, I am not an expert in nutrition, but what you could do is that you can please get on to our HarvestPlus site. There is a knowledge center, and you can download all the papers. But if you have any question, you can send it to APSA. I can forward that question to our nutrition team, and they will be able to answer all the questions. For mineral crops like iron and zinc, it has proved that there is a bioavailability and there's an absorption, and it has improved. For example, in pearl millet, it has improved the cognitive functions of the children. So that has improved the learning capacity, especially that is something that impacts when you have an iron deficiency. So these biofortified crops have improved that kind of indicators.
Yeah, I think that's a good source to see more information on HarvestPlus website. So let us move. I think we have time for 2 questions more from Syngenta Foundation. For sustainable agriculture, how long does it take to create the demand for biofortified crops from scratch and reach to the critical adoption rate to 20 to 25%?
Yeah, well, there are no numbers for it, but typically, if you were to look at agriculture intervention, it takes about 3 to 4 years to create a reasonable demand for the biofortified. In fact, very happy to let you know that HarvestPlus works with Syngenta Foundation in India. We have a very dedicated program for wheat, as well as for zinc wheat, as well as for iron pearl millet. There are no, I think so it also depends on what are the threshold levels of the varieties that you have in a country. That's also very important, So if the threshold levels of the, and then what is the average replacement rate of varieties in the country? In India, it is, in certain countries, it is more. In certain countries, the farmers readily change the varieties frequently. But in certain countries like India, still there's a challenge to replace old varieties with new varieties, because farmers really don't want to take a lot of risk. That's also a challenge for adoption of new varieties.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you
Okay.
so much. So may we have one last question from GBPUANT Patnagar? As we can see, the time between development of biofortified variety and its distribution activity in India is approximately 10 years. So can we reduce that time gap?
Well, as you are from GP Pant, so you know better than me. To develop a variety, it's anyway takes about 7 to 8 years to develop a new variety. So, and especially when you're looking at new innovations, like incorporating a new trait, that takes more time. Innovations always take time because you need to create investments, you need to create like-minded people, willingness partners to work on this strategy. So I don't think, unless until you have genetically modified crops, which can reduce the time. But when you are doing a conventional breeding, it takes about 7 to 8 years. So it takes about 10 years. And I would say that this is still a shorter period of time to take these crops into the field. So if you look at green revolution in Asia, it took about more than 10, 15 years to make that impact. So agriculture as an intervention will take time. That is something that we have to consider in a technology like this.
Very good explanation. So thank you so much, Dr. Binu, for your interesting and very detailed presentation. And we hope that we can invite you to explore for more sessions in the near future in APSA session. Thank you so much. So in the meantime, may I invite Dr. Frisco Malabanan for the wrap up.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, again, good afternoon to all of us, the Vice Chair of the SIG Field Crops, the APSA staff, and all the participants of this webinar too, as well as the two great speakers this afternoon. I think the topic today, both topic, the biofortification, a fundamental strategy to reduce worldwide malnutrition and scaling up biofortification for nutritious and sustainable food systems, I would say very timely with the current situation in the world, not only in Asia Pacific because of this pandemic. All people are looking for this, nutritious foods with all the micronutrients that we can have in the body so that we can have some level of tolerance to the existing virus or diseases in any parts of the world. And the two speakers clearly discuss the advantages of biofortification. Among the strategies that were discussed, to mention it, the supplementation, the food fortification, the dietary diversification, and biofortification. For me, as a field crops scientist, I would say biofortification is really very timely, and this will help a lot, billions of people in the world, so that we can address this malnutrition. And for biofortification to really reach the poor people, there are so many things that each one of us, from the government, from the private sector, to the farmers organization, and to the consumers, we really have partnership. This technology cannot reach the intended beneficiaries if this partnership will not happen. Say for example, high vitamin A crop in wheat. So of course, the private sector will not just grow any high vitamin A zinc if seed production is not profitable, because the private sector will undergo or will use one crop if of course, it will have an economic value on the part of the company, and the product, will it be acceptable to the small farmers? And then lastly, will it be acceptable to the consumers? These are several aspects of biofortification wherein I think HarvestPlus have already several experiences, and for other companies or for other countries that don't have much of this biofortification, really this topic this afternoon highlighted several aspects wherein every one of us can share and use it in our community or in our country. For me, my experience is, say for example, you develop a high vitamin A sweet potato. First, the crops must be the seed must be available, and if the seed is available, we have to have a continuing info dissemination to the seed growers. We have to have a continuing education of our consumers, because particularly in the depressed communities, if you will not really have specific programs to disseminate information regarding these biofortified crops, then definitely the users will not be so much. Only the well-off can access or can buy these crops with these special characteristics, which are, say, nutritious foods like high vitamin A wheat, sweet potato, maize, and just to add to what these two gentlemen presented, as we will be taking up this November on the technical session, we will be also presenting the product on golden rice. So this is part of biofortification. So we can learn a lot from this presentation as to the seed production, to the promotion, and up to the market, because no private sector will produce the seed if there is no much market to buy his seeds. It's just like any commodity or any seed product that we in the seed companies in the government is producing. But for me, I would like to say that to these two gentlemen that I think for government to address the marginal people, there must be a specific program of government in partnership with the private sector to produce the seeds, to produce the product, and for the government to facilitate the buyback of this product, processing, and distribute it to the marginal people. That will be the initial system where we can really provide these biofortified crops to the poor people. But of course, not all government can do this, particularly lack of resources and other aspects of production to marketing. But for sustainability, for small countries, for developing countries like the Philippines, I think for the marginal people to really use this biofortified products, then the seed must be accessible to the small farmer holder, because these are the ones that usually use their produce as foods or staple foods, just like rice, wheat, corn, and other commodities. So we still have a lot of programs or activities that must be done in relation to biofortification. We really have to educate majority of our population so that they can use these biofortified products, which are product of science and technology, product of research for development, where it took us several years before we can develop that particular crop. And if we cannot do the massive information campaign and education of our consumers, then this cannot be used in a wide scale. And we cannot address those problems of malnutrition, lack of micronutrients, and others in different parts of the world. So I think that is my short wrap up of the two papers. But again, this biofortification must be a continuing activity under research for development, both by public and private sector, so that these fortified crops will be available continuously, and more and more people in different parts of Asia and the Pacific will use and adopt this technology so that we can address the health issues or the nutrition problem of our people worldwide. Thank you very much, Mr. Mingramm and Dr. Binu, for a very detailed presentation of this biofortification aspect in crop in crop to up to market development in Asia and the Pacific. Thank you very much, and good luck. Kuna, I think that's all for my short wrap up of these two webinar papers.
Thank you very much, Dr. Malabanan, for the wrap up from the moderator. So next, may I invite Dr. Chua Kim-ik, the co-chair of APSA Special Interest Group for Field Crops, for the closing remarks. Dr. Chua, please.
Thanks, Kuna. First of all, I would like to thank our two speakers and our moderators for sharing with us a very interesting topic and a message that sharing with us about the trend and the problem and how they solve the problem. We also like to thank those attendees attending follow through the whole section, making this webinar become a very successful webinar. And I think looking at the trend and looking at the product that what they are doing and also the problem that they are facing, there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of work need to be done. I hope that those of you here that can explore this opportunity and also contribute and participate in making this activity and then also help to solve the problem that what we are facing now. You notice that there are almost about 1 billion people in hunger and malnutrition, and also there's currently most of the crop that with this biofortification crop are mainly focused on this stable food. There are also other crop that need to involve and need to develop further. So you can see that there's still a huge opportunity and gap need your participation. So I hope through this section that you gain something that you have inspired from this section, that to continue with what are the research activity to solve the problem. And then we thanks for your attention, and then also we would like to have you in our coming section in November. Lastly, we would like to thank our sponsor, East West Seed, and then and Ducky Seed, being the sponsor for this activity, making this activity for this activity for the people to have a chance to join in, to have a chance to expose to all this information. I think it's very, very important for us to understand the trend, to understand the need, so that we know our focus and what to focus in our research and development. Thanks again. Thank you very much. Have a good day and stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chua, for the closing remarks. So I just have 1 minute short presentation about the next session that you can, to give you more information about the next session that Dr. Malabanan and Dr. Chua Kim-ik mentioned in November. So for today's webinar, we will send the 3 minutes post webinar survey to APSA members to help us improve the performance of the webinar. And the certificate of attendance will be issued to APSA members who answer this survey. And the presentation will be shared tomorrow. So for the next activity, we'll have the APSA SIG Field Crops online technical session. Please mark the date on November 24th at 12 noon time to 2 p.m. ICT Bangkok time. The registration will be open in mid-October. Just to give you a glimpse of the topics, the highlight topics, the prospect of popcorn in India by Dr. Sen Das, the ex-director ICAR, and the new technology for field crops breeding MNP marker method, which is an efficient way for breeding, and the PVP by Dr. Lee Tian, Institute for System Biology from Chiang-Mai University in China. And as Dr. Balabanan mentioned, this is a topic about biofortification on golden rice, biotechnology milestone for improved nutrition in the Philippines by Dr. Sacado from the Philippines Rice Research Institute. So stay tuned with APSA activities. Mark the date on November 24th. And thank you very much, everyone.